reading this morning is from the 3rd chapter of Ruth. One day Naomi said to Ruth, "My daughter, it's time I found a permanent home for you, so that you will be provided for." Boaz, a close relative of ours, and he has been very kind, letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Take a bath, put on perfume, and dress in your nicest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he has finished eating and drinking. Be sure to notice where he lies down. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do. "I will do everything you said," Ruth replied. So she went to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking, he was in good spirits. He lay down at the far end of the pile of grain and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Around midnight, Boaz suddenly woke up and turned over. He was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant Ruth," she replied. "Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," Boaz exclaimed. "You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it is true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he is willing to redeem you, very well, let him marry you. But if he is not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning." So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until the morning, but she got up before it was late enough for people to recognize each other. For Boaz had said, "No one must know that a woman was here on the threshing floor." Then Boaz said to her, "Bring your cloak and spread it out." He measured out 6 scoops of barley into the cloak and placed it on her back. Then he returned to the town. When Ruth went back to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "What happened, my daughter?" Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her, and she added, "He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Then Naomi said to her, "Just be patient, my daughter, until we hear what happens. The man won't rest until he has settled things today." Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
I invite you to be seated. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
I have to start today by confessing that I owe you all a very deep apology because I lied to you. The first sermon of this series on Ruth, I stood up and I talked about how I had never heard a sermon preached on Ruth. This was in fact untrue. It was a lie. I apologize. I know this is true because sometime in my college career at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, the dean of the college at that time, Dr. William Kraft, stood in the Center for Faith and Life, where we had all of our chapel, church, and whatever things. And he stood on that stone walkway that you can see, and there was a pulpit there, and he preached a sermon that included this text. And I have to assume that because Luther operated in a sermon series much like y'all do, there were probably actually other sermons in that series on Ruth, but this is the one I remember. And I remember because he stood in front of the gathered congregation, which included several of our religion professors, our college president because he never missed a chapel. And he opened his sermon, P.S., here's your PG-13 warning. And he stood up holding a physical poster board sign that said, "Feet does not equal foot." Some of you all have enough biblical knowledge to know what this means, and you are kind of giggling to yourselves. Some of you may be scratching your heads and wondering what I am talking about and what else feet could refer to in the Bible. The particular Hebrew word here has some euphemistic connotations for male biology. I'm gonna let that one take a minute for some of y'all, right? So she's not necessarily just uncovering feet. Now, a side note, because I guarantee one of y'all is gonna ask me in the greeting line afterwards, Pastor, there's stories in the New Testament of Jesus washing feet. I know it! The Greek word does not carry the same connotations. In the New Testament, feet equals foot. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, right? Whew. I'm a little nervous up here. Right, so, we have feet don't equal feet. Without this understanding, yes, the move that Ruth makes to go to Boaz in the middle of the night is a really bold one. But when you add this context with our PG-13 knowledge, maybe even rated R actually, it is a really, really bold move for Ruth to take. This is a huge risk for her to go to Boaz in this way, in this time period, in the middle of the night. It could end in disaster for her and Naomi if Boaz turns out to not be the person that they think he is. Last week, Pastor Brad talked about how faith requires participation in action, right? And he talked about it in the context of that daily grind of getting up and moving and trying to see and partner with God. We don't just sit and pray and we act. But sometimes in faith, that action and participation asks for our daily grind. And sometimes faith asks for our big, giant, bold risks. Sometimes it asks for the daily grind of Ruth gleaning in the fields, picking up the leftovers just to have enough to eat. And sometimes that looks like going to the threshing floor and risking everything. So how did we get from grinding the gleaning to risk on the threshing floor? We're going to go back a little bit, right? Because last week in the grind, we were introduced to the final named character of the story of Ruth, Boaz, who is the kinsman of Naomi's husband. Because we know that names have meaning in biblical stories, let me take a minute to tell you that the name Boaz means pillar or strength, right? So this tells us something about who Boaz, we can assume Boaz is going to be. And let me back this up. Boaz allows Ruth to glean, aka pick up the leftovers in the field. And Naomi is very excited when she finds out that Ruth has met Boaz, because Boaz is their family redeemer. Right? We hear Naomi's declaration, "May the Lord bless him," Naomi told her daughter-in-law. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. This declaration that Naomi makes isn't just a hopeful crossed fingers that, because Boaz is family, he might take care of us. She is referring to a law given to the Israelites in the wilderness that dictates how the Israelites are to deal with folks who are selling property due to poverty. So if you have to sell your property because you do not have the funds to continue life, this is how they're supposed to deal with him. And Leviticus 20:25 says, if one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and is forced to sell some family land, then a close family relative should buy it back from him or for him. So when Naomi declares, thank goodness he's family, this isn't just a like, ooh, maybe he'll take care of us and give us some food to eat and like watch over us. This is Naomi's reliance on a legal and moral obligation that Boaz has to her and to Ruth. There are two reasons that Ruth and Naomi could need a family redeemer, right? One is that when the family left Bethlehem to go to Moab, they sold all their property to fund their travels. So now Ruth and Naomi have nowhere to return to. The second, that Ruth and Naomi as two women can't really do much with property because of the culture that they live in at the time. So now they're in poverty and need to sell. Either way, Boaz, as one of the family redeemers, has an obligation to fulfill his rule and law. And Boaz, though he may be a strong pillar, hasn't quite figured this out yet. He hasn't put two and two together, and he hasn't really volunteered to step into this role. So Ruth and Naomi do what generations of faithful women have done when the faithful men need a little extra prompting to start something. They make a plan. And it's not a simple one. It is a scandalous, risky plan. It is the end of the barley harvest. And what Naomi knows is that means likely Boaz and his crew will be celebrating. This isn't like a, woohoo, we're done, let's all go take a really long nap. It means Boaz and his crew will be overindulging this night and will most likely not be in a state of being able to make it home by the end of the night, so they will be sleeping it off on the threshing floor, which creates a perfect opportunity for Ruth to make her move. So Ruth gets ready. She takes her bath, which is not just every night you take your bath. It was a big deal. She is really getting ready. She sneaks to the threshing floor. She waits for Boaz to fall asleep and pass out, and she takes her place. And she waits. And she waits. And she waits. I cannot imagine being Ruth in this moment, right? You are waiting, knowing this can go one of two ways, most likely. And then Boaz wakes, and he is somewhat understandably surprised to find a woman in his bed. And Ruth takes this opportunity to make her plea. Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer. No euphemism here, but there is some context, because this is not just a stop hogging all the covers, I'm cold over here. This is asking Boaz to fulfill his duty. To spread the corner of a covering is the same wording used when God spreads God's protection over the Israelites. Ruth is asking for Boaz to spread his protection over her, to take care of her. And in this ask, Ruth is boldly humble, or humbly bold, I'm not really sure which one, but she embodies that humility that comes with asking for help and the boldness to risk the rejection and the shame that can come. It is that paradox of faith once again. Because Boaz can say no. He could call her names, he could shame her, he could drag her before the town and community and humiliate her. She's just a woman after all. And more than that, she is a foreign woman, which means in theory, none of the obligations apply to her. But instead, he recognizes her loyalty and he makes her a promise. He says, don't worry about a thing. I will do everything necessary, for everyone knows who you are. In response to Ruth's risks, Boaz must plan his own. Because what Boaz knows is there is another who, by the way, has no name. So this should tell us something about his role in the story. But he technically has a higher level of claim, And so Boaz knows he cannot act, right? We see there in 12, there's another man who is more closely related to you than I am. And this means he has a claim higher than Boaz is to the family land. And we'll see next week in more depth that Boaz will make his own plans. He will take his own risks to go to No Name and scheme to be allowed to be the redeemer for Ruth and Naomi. He will take his own risks in subverting some tradition. But for now, after some sleep, Ruth goes home before she can be seen. She takes with her what we hear is 6 scoops of grain, which may not seem like a lot, but is actually a lot. And scholars hypothesize this was the cost of marriage. So it is a big promise from Boaz to Ruth, and Ruth waits. We end today with the instruction from Naomi, just be patient, my daughter, until we hear what happens. And there's a risk in this waiting for Ruth and Naomi, because it could not go according to their plan, because No Name Redeemer could decide to redeem the family, to increase his own wealth and stature by taking the family land, and he may not be as honorable and kind of a man as Boaz is. And so they wait. And they wait. And they wait. Because the other truth of faith is that sometimes the risks of faith require us to act and wait and wait. Now, unlike Ruth, we do not have to risk for our redemption, right? That was taken care of. That was a risk that God took in Ruth's great 28 greats grandson, Jesus. Right? God took that risk when God became enfleshed in the line of David. We don't have to make the risky act of asking God to cover us in protection and love, because again, that has already been done. We are already covered in God's love. And yet, the risks that God has taken in our redemption, in the love that God has shared, call us to bold humility or humble boldness as well. We are called to risk for others. We are called, like Ruth, to act in faith, whether in our daily grind of our jobs or parenting or whatever it is that feels like the monotony of life. We are called to that. But we are also called to the risks of faith, of speaking up when needed, to ask the questions, to approach those with power and ask them to live into their obligations, to ask for protection for those who need it most. And like Boaz, we are called to risk seeking protection for those who need it, to use the resources that we have been given to cover this world and show this world God's love, to live into our legal and moral obligation under God's law, to love God, love people each and every day, because that's who God has called us to be. That is who God has risked everything for us to be. And all of God's people said, Amen. I invite you to stand. I'm going to go over.
You heal the brokenhearted. You set the captive free. You lift the heavy burden. And even now you are lifting me. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal to the King of Kings. Oh, our God is with us, we will fear no evil, 'cause you do impossible things. You Our God is with